Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, and I have a very sad news today, but something that we can do. We can pray for about the news that I'm going to give you today. There's a fellow, I can't mention his name because there's a court case going out against this here, but this man is in jail for following and obeying the scriptures. This man has been put in jail because he decided he must circumcise his son, and he went ahead and circumcised his son, and he got thrown into jail for doing so. Not only is the governments of the world, all around the world, trying to make circumcision illegal, but they're already throwing people in jail for doing it or having it done. And there's a fellow here who had this situation done. And listen, I just interviewed this fellow. I can't give you his name because it's still going through court cases and procedures and so on. But the man is sitting in jail right now, and he said on the interview, and when I spoke to him privately, please have people contact you, and if anyone's willing to contact me here in jail for support, give them my contact information so they can contact me or write me. The only thing they do is write him. You can't type up an email and print it out. It has to be a handwritten letter. So I'm asking you to support this brother for being faithful and contact him. I'm going to put the email address right here on the screen of the lady who's handling this information. So just contact this lady and ask her tell her you saw the interview here on Torah Life Ministries with Paul Neeson about this fellow in jail, and you want to write to him, then she will supply with you his name and address. So I'm going to play for you now the interview. Now this man is in Canada, but whether it's Canada, United States, they already made circumcision illegal in Germany, I heard, and they're doing it all over the world, but they're throwing people in jail for circumcising their children or having their children circumcised. This is crazy, but this is the world we live in today. So basically, I'm going to play this interview now. I want to ask you to pray for this fellow. Put your questions or comments below the video, and thank you for checking it out. Hello everybody, this is Paul Neeson, and we're on the phone right now with a fellow who's actually on his way to prison because he lost an appeal in the courts. And this is a crazy story, everybody. So let's just say hello to our guest on the phone here and hear his story. So hello, guest. And for the sake of, we're not going to reveal his name, but we have to reveal his information because this is just an example of what's going to be happening in the future. And we need to stand up for this, for our rights, for our biblical rights. And sir, tell us what exactly happened and why you're on your way to jail right now.
Well, Paul, I practiced the covenant of circumcision, just like Abraham did. I circumcised my son at the age of 4, which is after the time it was supposed to be done. But at that time, I wasn't aware of the covenants and laws at the time he was born.
So you basically, you decided that, you read the scriptures and you decided that the scriptures say that we're supposed to circumcise our children, and your son was not circumcised. So at 4 years old, you decided you were going to circumcise him. And from what I understand, you did research on the procedure and everything else. You did the circumcision. Now, when you did it, was there, before the law got involved, was there any issues? Was there any problems with how was it going, and exactly how the process go?
Well, Paul, I'd like to back up a bit. I'd been separated from my wife, but then we got back together. And during the time of separation, I researched, studied Torah, got circumcised myself. And then when we got back together, I told her, I'm keeping Passover, and all the males in the household have to be circumcised. And she protested. We didn't have much money. I thought I'd get out of it by traveling elsewhere for Passover, but it didn't work out. I traveled to Passover, and the fellow there, we had some stuff in common, but he disagreed with me on some doctrine, and he said, nope, you can't keep Passover with me. So I drove back home. Now, that very week, I'd been in touch with Troy Miller, and I've been discussing this thing of circumcision and how my son wasn't circumcised, but he needed to be for Passover. And Troy said, I've got a website. And he and his wife had both worked in the medical field, not as doctors, but they were around. They worked in hospitals. They had some familiarity with the protocols. And he described how simple it is to do a traditional bris milah, the original type of Abrahamic circumcision. The modern circumcision is done by a urologist. It tends to involve a lot of snipping and sewing and cutting. And it takes a while. There's a lot of steps. The Abrahamic one is very simple. It's just one cut. In fact, I believe, based on the fact that they used flint knives, it was probably more like a chisel. But in any event, it was just one very quick instant in time, and it's done. A bit of flesh is cut off. So he was explaining that, and then he told me how they did it at their farm, how his sons were circumcised. And I thought, well, here's the information I've been lacking. So now I don't have any excuse. Didn't have any reason to not do it. And as I was driving back from the failed attempt at Passover, I found the store which sold the equipment that Troy had described. So I thought, well, the timing of it and everything, it's almost like I was meant to do it. So I thought, well, okay, if I'm supposed to do it, I will do it. So there's a special powder called blood stop powder, and there's variants of it called Wonder Dust. It's an amazing thing. It was designed to work on all species of mammal. It's a broad spectrum sort of thing. It's like an artificial scab. It's a super scab. You know, if you get a cut, your body forms a scab. Well, this dust, it cleans, cauterizes, disinfects, and coagulates. It stops bleeding, and it forms a super tough scab that nothing can get into. So I used some of that. They later played that up in the newspapers, and they said, well, he used something that was used for horses. Well, yes, it's used for horses, but it's not just used for horses. People on farms use it for themselves, too, because it's good stuff.
Sure. Now, before we get ahead of this here, so you did it. Now, how did authorities find out that what you did?
Well, my wife is a Catholic, and now she's from the Philippines. And in the Philippines, circumcision is a custom. So she wasn't really bothered by it. I mean, growing up, she watched her older brothers come home, and they'd all been circumcised. It was just a part of life. But I had a cousin who was a Seventh-day Adventist, and my wife was talking on the phone with her and mentioned the circumcision. And that cousin went and turned right around and reported it to the social workers. She said, oh, something terrible's happened. I'm worried about his safety. The little boy's being circumcised. Well, at that point, it was about 4 days later. I guess by the time it got to the social workers, it was 5 days later. On the 5th day, 2 police officers and a social worker showed up at the doorstep. They wanted to talk to me. And my little boy, he'd already mostly healed. He was out playing next door with the neighbor kids. And they arrested me. Now, the police sergeant was a Sikh. And he told them, look, there's religious freedom here. You can't arrest a man for doing that. I thought, okay, well, that's reasonable. This is going better than I hoped. So the police went their way, but the social worker stayed behind, and he said, well, just let us take him to the hospital and see if he's all right. Well, I knew my son was all right, so I thought, what harm can come? Well, I didn't count on them creating false witnesses and false testimony.
So they basically set you up, is what you're saying.
They got him to the hospital, and from there, now this powder, it creates a super scab. This is not a thing that's normally done in hospitals, so doctors aren't really familiar with blood stop powder. So they were wondering, well, what is this stuff? What's going on? Why is this? And it looks like ash, sort of a charcoal-based product. So they were all panicking. What is this stuff? Now, they could see that he wasn't infected, and he wasn't bleeding. He was peeing normally. So there was no danger. But still, they were whipping themselves up. I mean, my wife was there, and she described how the doctors and the nurses were coming and going, and they were trying to get that black stuff off. They didn't know what it was. Then about 8 o'clock that night, one of the supervisors of the social workers came in, and she was sort of gloating to my wife that, well, how do you feel now that your husband is in jail? Well, my wife told her, well, he's not in jail. They didn't arrest him. And she looked. She said, well, we'll fix that. And she made a few phone calls, and very shortly after that, there were 3 police cars in front of the house waiting for me. And I happened to be on the bus, and I saw that. As I was going to the house, I saw the police cars parked out front, so I just stayed on the bus. And I decided, well, we're almost finished the Feast of Passover. I didn't really want to be in jail for the rest of Passover, especially because it was a Friday, and Easter Friday, I was going to be in there all weekend. So I went somewhere else to finish off the feast and try and get a lawyer and and see what could be done and what the situation was. Well, I came back a few days later, and they sent 10 police officers to arrest me. And I was in the holding cell for 5 days.
And what were the grounds that they arrested you on?
They charged me with criminal negligence and aggravated assault
Now,
with a weapon.
just to clarify this up for my listeners, you live in Canada, correct?
I live in Canada, and in Canada there is no law that says a doctor must do a circumcision or that you need a license to do it. In fact, the Moyles here are not licensed. So they did not go after me for practicing medicine without a license. They know up here that it is not a medical operation.
So what happened? You were in the cell for 5 days, and then what happened next?
Then I got out on bail, and there was a preliminary inquiry, then there was a trial, then there was an appeal, and now today it was the last appeal at the Supreme Court of Canada. My lawyer spoke for an hour. The Crown, that is I guess in your country that would be the district attorney, he never got a chance to speak. The three judges unanimously dismissed my appeal. They said, no, you lose. They didn't take any time deliberating or discussing it.
Now, was your wife and family in the courtroom when all this was taking place?
No. For the first 4 years, I could not have any contact with the children at all. I couldn't ask someone to relay a message to them. I couldn't ask someone to hug them for me. But it was funny. After all this 4 years of no contact, finally the week came when they finished their catechism class and they were taking their first communion in the Catholic Church. Suddenly the social workers dropped all restrictions. I thought that was kind of coincidental.
So all of this happened about 4 years ago, and since then the court said you weren't allowed to see your children.
5 years ago. So I've been able to see them this year, but yeah.
And what about your wife? What happened? Was the children with her? Who were the children with?
Actually, the children live with her, and I'm actually just driving 30 miles out to see them for a few hours before I go into the jail.
Wow. So now how long was the jail sentence for?
1 year.
Wow. And when you get out of jail, are you allowed to see your children?
Yep, no restrictions.
Okay. Well, we need to pray for you, brother. We need to have everyone encourage you because this is a terrible thing that they're trying to do to you, that they are doing to you. So.
Well, I appreciate that. I'd like to tell you another story. It's not about me. It's about Brother Edwin Baxter.
Okay.
He was in the state of Oregon, and he did something similar. Unlike me, he called an ambulance because he didn't know how to stop the bleeding. Well, they sentenced him to, I think it was more than a year. It might have been a year and a half. It might have been 3 years. He went through much worse. They put him in a jail cell with a fellow that knew Greek and knew the Greek New Testament inside out. And during that time in jail, they actually got him away from Torah. He's eating pork and he's got a smoothly shaven face, and it's like, he's a nice guy, but that experience, it's like, wow, after going through all that and then to lose your faith, it's a hard thing.
Yeah, wow. Well, brother, you have to stay strong. Now, how can people get in touch with you, or is there a way? I mean, you'll get me that info and I'll be able to get it out to everybody?
Yes, there will be an address for the prison. I have to look it up, and I will email that to you before I go in. Once you're in, it's very tough to get out. You can't. Telephone calls are almost impossible, and also they only allow handwritten letters. People have tried sending me information where they printed off a letter, or if you print off an email and try and send it in, they won't let it in. So they do whatever they can. It's like being at the bottom of a well.
Wow. Well,
now, last time I was in there, when I lost the trial the first time, I was in there for 40 days and 40 nights, down to the hour. And then I got bailed out so I could make the appeal. So I was saying, okay, God is present. I know He's real. Just sometimes very scary things happen.
Wow, brother. Well, we're so sad and sorry you're going through this, and we are praying for you. And I know you're busy. You got a lot going on in your mind today, and you got a lot to do. And I thank you so much for letting me contact you and let people know that they have to be careful in these situations and use diligence, because you know, the word is set in stone, but man will try to do everything to prosecute us. And brother, we are praying for you. I'm going to let you go so you can spend time with your family, but you know, you hang in there and I'll keep everyone updated. Is there anything you want to say to the people out there before we finish the interview?
Just want to say thank you, Paul, and I wish you all shalom. Look forward to getting to know some of you if you choose to write. And I hope we can all meet each other at the Pacific Coast one day.
All right, brother. Okay, you stay strong, and we will be in touch for sure. And I'll let my listeners know once you have an address we could write you. And again, our hearts go out to you and your family, and we just pray that you're all together soon, and somehow, some way, that this situation will help others. So, brother, thank you, and you know, thanks for being a faithful man of Yahweh, and we'll be praying for you. And Shabbat Shalom, okay?
Shalom, shalom.
All right, shalom.
All right, everybody, there it was. That was the video. That was the interview, and we need to do something about this. At least write to this brother and show him your support for being faithful, and pray that he gets out of jail so he can spend time with his family. This craziness. Not only did they put him in jail, but they stopped him from seeing his children for 4 years. Folks, don't let this stop you from being faithful, because we know that there's a higher power other than the court system today, and that is our almighty, wonderful Creator, and He sees our faithfulness, and He rewards us for it. All right? Put those comments or questions below the video. Thanks for checking us out. Shalom, shalom.